Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery. Before I go any further, I just want to say this is a very special video to me. This is my 1-year recovery journey, and I will talk about why looking at timelines and comparing your journey is not a good thing. But this is a big day for me because I have not played video games in a year, which is a major compulsion for me. If any of you have watched my previous videos, which I will talk about, I was playing 90 to 100 hours a week. I was extremely unhealthy. I'll dive into all that and how it kept me in my compulsions and my fear cycle. Before I go any further, if you could please subscribe down below. This is a great channel, lots of free resources by Rob, other moderators going through their journeys, specific fears, what worked and what didn't work for them. I would like to thank everyone in the community so far I've met throughout this very interesting up and down journey with great experiences. Thank you to Rob. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you to everyone I've talked to in the OCD recovery group. Thank you for all your input. Thank you to my wonderful wife, my friends, and my family who have all stood by and supported me on this journey. And one last thing before we dive in, and I have both of my whiteboards filled out today. So it will be a little bit more of a lengthy video. I do want to say this journey comes down to you. No matter all the support you get, which is amazing, it's always nice to have support. You might not have support as much as other people. I will talk about comparative suffering and how it tends to keep us stuck. Ultimately, OCD recovery will come down to you and the work you put in. Again, it's nice to have support. It's nice to have the learning tools, but it will come down to you. And that's something that we can't overlook, because sometimes we can rely on other sources in life, external solutions to fix an internal problem. But to get that fear cycle down, you're really going to have to put in the work and move through recovery with the ups and downs. So let's talk about my journey in the last year, and sometimes a little bit before the last year, before I actually started the journey. So a little bit about me. Who am I, if none of you have watched my videos before? My name is Nicholas Pinella. I'm a doctor of chiropractic here in Colorado. I was born and raised in Jersey. I actually worked on the Jersey Shore with the cast, which is actually a funny thing. My dad had a beach house right there. I lived with my dad for a while after my mom and dad split. My dad passed away from cancer, which I will talk about, which is really where things started to decline for me severely with my stress when I was in grad school about 3 years ago. Never had any fear about losing a parent or anything like that, but that was really like stepping stone into when I dove deep into my anxiety issues. So my father was a compulsive hoarder and a compulsive spender. I really didn't realize just how much the genetic component with OCD, because they do believe for the most part is a genetic component. I have a second cousin who actually suffers with chronic OCD as well. It's very common actually on the Pinella side, my father's side. My mom, my dad's mom definitely had contamination OCD, maybe not clinically locked, but in a very, very bad manner. And perfectionism irrationalities have run deep in my dad's side of the family. So when I was a kid, I was very impulsive. I got in a lot of trouble. Now where I am now, I look back and you kind of look at the quirks and stuff, and it's interesting to see, how it kind of built me to where I was. But again, looking at the past, it can't be the number one way to move forward. We have to look at the beliefs, which we're going to talk a lot about that. So definitely an impulsive kid. I definitely viewed myself as the bad kid. I mean, my whole life, everyone was like, oh, I got the bad kid. He's the bad child. Some of my irrational beliefs may have stemmed from that subconsciously before I understood the context of life. Some of the weird things I did, which I totally forgot until I started suffering and then thinking, oh, wow, I've definitely had subclinical OCD my whole life. I would hide food behind dressers when I was a kid. I would compulsively lie, which I only really started to work on a couple years ago, based on some severe irrationalities of needing to be cool. I was a compulsive checker. I would put myself, because I have a lot of body issues as well, which I'm working on now. I would rub lotion on me 24/7 because I needed that feel right sensation. When you go throughout the journey, the chances of you, if you have chronic OCD, some people may, it is possible, maybe get over their main fear and they may never chronically suffer again. Most of us have a lot of underlying fears, which can kind of kick us back in the journey when we're like, well, I just worked for, a year on this one. Now what's this about? It's because those underlying fears may be of not as serious and lying dormant. This is why the journey is, it can be a lot longer than people want it to be. Not forever in the grand scheme of life, as Rob talks about, but maybe a couple years instead of, say, a couple months, how some people may make it out to be. I like to call myself the doctor of certainty. That's what I was. I was a kid. I needed certainty on everything. And as you know, with OCD, certainty and reassurance keeps that fear cycle stuck. So where it began. On March 28th, 2018, which I have tattooed on my wrist right here, my father died of pancreatic cancer. At the time, I was in grad school. I was about a year in out of 3.5 years, and I was already very, very stressed. I had school 40 hours a week. That's in class. At a doctoral level, medical doctors, docs physical therapy, orthopedic surgeons, chiropractors, not including any studying or like that. And I was heavily caffeinated and sleeping 4 hours a day because I was still playing a good amount of video games. I had a severe perfectionist issue, which I still kind of have to work on today, which is okay. Again, I accept everything I have to work on. If something pops up now, it's another thing to work on that can benefit me in the future. So severe perfectionist must be the first one done at tests. This was something I didn't realize till recently, how like obsessive I was. I would get anxiety if I wasn't the first person done with a test. I must know everything. This is a highly common irrational belief that's in, say, the educational academia society that we see. I have lots of friends who are researchers, some people PhDs, doctorate level, some people masters, and that irrational belief based around societal standards that, my wife just did a really good video on this actually yesterday, that, if you're a clinician, for an example, or a doctor or a teacher, you can have nothing wrong with you because you must know everything. And this is actually quite bad when you start bleeding into those irrational beliefs in society. And this can really hinder someone. It actually really hindered me. I had this belief that I needed to know everything. I had to be reading research 5 hours a day. That perfectionist mindset really set me in for just, getting myself in that OCD chronic loop. So, I must work the hardest, which was a big one as well. And the body image stuff was something we will talk about in a little bit. I want to talk about the latch. The latch is what I like to call where it all kind of started. And we all have a story about this because, as we know, chronic OCD can kind of just turn on like a light switch. So it's interesting when you're explaining to people how it works. Now remember, before I go any further, yelling at them and trying to convince them that they must understand us is kind of a hopeless pursuit. We just want them to, hear us out maybe, and if they don't want to listen to us, that's fine. So the latch. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning with ringing in my ear that never went away. I've been to multiple music festivals. A little bit more about me. I love music. I love concerts, electronic music. I'm your typical New Jersey boy. So I woke up and I was freaking out. I went into my wife's room, was having a panic attack, and I'm saying to her, what is going on? I'm checking the vents. I'm doing this. I had no idea what was going on. 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 anxiety. I mean, like freak out meltdown for months. I slept maybe 30 minutes at a time. The first couple weeks, I think I slept literally 4 hours in 10 days. I'm not even joking. My wife can attest to that. It was really crazy. So, and what I realize now, what was keeping us locked, and how tinnitus or tinnitus, however you want to say it, is actually very commonly prescribed therapy wrong in a lot of ways. ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, and cognitive, looking at things and bringing your fear down is the way to go. Those ear masking devices and all that stuff tends to keep people very, very locked. It's about accepting the sound and realizing that even if it was there, even if the buzzing was there, it doesn't warrant any sort of over-concern, fear, and stuff like that. Sounds kind of similar to OCD recovery journey, doesn't it? So the fear was gigantic. And my beliefs were my life is ruined, I'll have no joy, and so forth. I read a book called Rewiring Tinnitus by a kid who has Meniere's disease, which is severe tinnitus with vertigo. And it was just a good book about accepting the sound. I had never heard of Rob yet, and it was good. And then 4 months later, when I was starting to recover, and I had lots of ups and downs in that period because I really didn't understand what was going on, I was driving at the beach, and I was about 2.5 years in the Cairo school, and I had a panic attack thinking about my blinking. Boom, latch. Lying on the ground in the parking lot, and we get back, full panic mode, full panic attack. I mean, imagine this to a concerned partner of a sufferer. I cannot stop thinking about my blinking. She's just like, what do you mean? Because somatic OCD might not be the most commonly talked about obsessions, like say contamination OCD or harm OCD and stuff like that. So, I was freaking out. It originally was blinking. And after about 2 weeks, having chronic face pain, and hell, I wouldn't call it chronic, but because that's, not the category, but lots of face pain, it kind of switched over to saliva and swallowing, and that kind of stuck the rest of the way. So, school and finals, I'm actually going to bring this in a little bit like this, like that. Okay. So, I was in school, like I said, going through national boards when this kind of went through. So I had to really keep, myself focused in school as much as I thought. I was like, I need to be focused, which made it even worse. I was creating secondary, tertiary, and fourth and fifth style problems just by like the damning of myself, which I understand, which we all kind of go through in the journey when we don't know what's going on. So I was suffering with severe depersonalization. I remember taking National Boards Part 4, which was 25 live rooms with 25 doctors sitting in a corner. I had to go in. I had, pathology rooms. I had manipulation rooms. I had diagnostic rooms, history-taking rooms, completely in a panic attack the whole entire time. And so, this is what we mean by wearing it like an uncomfortable coat. Even though I didn't even understand what that meant at the time, because I don't believe I met Rob, it was just bad. So my buddy, who also had somatic OCD, who I met online after being like, I can't stop thinking about my blinking. As we know, chronic Googling, gotta go. Big compulsion. So I met him, awesome kid. He said, hey, know this guy, OCD recovery, named Rob, boom, 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 found him. Still didn't really listen to anything Rob said. I was a very stubborn person. Still can be in my own little way. So November 2019, so 17 months ago, I was admitted to a hospital. I tried to jump out of a moving car. I was really in a bad place. I wanted to harm myself, unfortunately, because I just thought my life was ruined forever. And, what they did was I was locked in there for 96 hours. They tried to misdiagnose me. Even at the time, I'm like, no, I think I have OCD. They tried to misdiagnose me with bipolar, because of my personality. 1 minute you're down, 1 minute you're up. In the very beginning, when you don't understand, even like more to the middle of the journey, you can have severe ups and downs. Excuse me. And it could seem like something else. I think bipolar is probably misdiagnosed with OCD pretty commonly, along with other anxiety disorders. But again, it's not their fault. I mean, we can, but you don't want to be like, oh, you're an idiot, because that just doesn't work. And we have the societal belief about trying to convince people. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So video games was my major compulsion avoidance. I was playing at this time 80 to 100 hours a week. I graduated school somehow, so you can do things when you're chronically suffering at a doctoral level. I passed all my national boards, which was surprising to me. That really was like a click for me. I remember thinking, wow, if I could do all this when I was having a full panic attack, I mean, you could do a lot of things. So I was smoking 2 packs of vape a day, the Juul container. I had severe addictive personalities, caffeine, compulsively. I do have ADHD. Not a big deal. A lot of people think that if you have one or the other, or there are people out there that will tell you that it hinders your OCD recovery. It may or may not. I mean, look at where I am. You could still push forward. So I gained 30 pounds. I wasn't working out and I had no balance. So Rob and I had to talk a lot about balance. I used to say I couldn't even spell the word balance as a joke because I just, or any of that, because I just was so, A-type, need to do this now. My needs and my musts were so deep. No wonder why when I basically completely recovered from somatic OCD, all these other things popped up, because I had a lot of irrational beliefs that I didn't even realize were irrational beliefs. So I realized that something needed to change. It was really, really, really when I was sitting here and I was playing sometimes 48 hours straight, wasn't going to work. My wife was about to leave me, rightfully so. I mean, I was putting her through a lot of distress, and on May 1st, 2020, I'm in my video game room right now, which is now our office because we're a mobile practice. I took my video games, I put them in my closet. I ended up giving my PC and my monitor and my system away to my neighbor's kid for free, which is hilarious because I remember giving it to him and the dad was like, huh? I was like, yeah, just take it. I don't want this in my house. So we are going to move over now to the journey itself. This is a background of how I got to where I was, how OCD can manifest. And I think this is just really, really important to cover because it's nice to hear. I get it. It's nothing inherently wrong with hearing people's journeys because the OCD journey can be really, really isolating. So we're going to get real nice and close. All right. Sorry if it's a little darker over here. We got the light. Boom. The beginning. What to expect and what I didn't expect on my journey. So in the beginning, their first little bit of going through recovery, there's going to be lots of confusion, lots of instilled panic, and lots of if you have it, for me, well, not for everyone, but I had a lot of depersonalization. But confusion and panic and like the I need to get better now. It's very easy to fall into the, Well, I've been working on my beliefs for 2 weeks. Why aren't I better? Because you've been holding these beliefs for potentially decades. I have been holding my body image beliefs, connecting my self-worth. I am not good enough if I don't look shredded to who I am for 2 decades. Since I was like 12. When I first started like looking at bodybuilding stuff, it's a really unhealthy industry actually. So I was having severe video game withdrawals. I'll throw in some fun facts around here. I think it's always nice to learn. Severe video game addicts, when they look at their objective brain scan. So we have objective, which means, clinical findings, and we have subjective findings. So what I think, what this moderator thinks, what Rob thinks, and then we compare those opinions anecdotally through experiences. And that's how we come up with hypothesis to form research. It's actually a cool little system when you look at, research, or if you're a complete nerd like I am. So I was having severe video game withdrawals because I was so dependent. I didn't realize how much I was avoiding. So when I put them away, if Rob remembers this, I would call him, I need to have an emergency talk right now. So we'd have one and he'd be like, all right, let's just try and go moment to moment. Let the anxiety come in. As we always talk about, feeling that anxiety like an uncomfortable coat, as Rob coined it, you cannot overlook that. That is the majority of your journey. The majority of your journey is not engaging with the thoughts, as some people may think. The further you get along in recovery, the mindfulness, thoughts can come into play. But in the beginning, looking at the core fears and going with uncertainty and set exposures, if you're working with a good coach or therapist, is probably where you want to start. It's not that mindfulness or going with those certain things have no benefit, because that's not true. Meditation and yoga can help many people. But if we start relying on those things only, for chronic OCD sufferers, it might not unlatch it. So extreme mood swings. One moment you feel like you're recovered, you're like, I got it. You take a nap or you go to work and you leave work, you're like, I'm back. I'm stuck. It's over. So that's actually really, really, really common for a lot of people I've talked to. Anger was very angry because my just irrational beliefs about life. This should not be happening to me. I'm always the outgoing guy. The self-pity route. Sadie's done some really good videos on this recently. I recommend watching that to get more of an in-depth about self-pity. I actually didn't really suffer with self-pity a whole lot because I would just have the other problem where I was like, can't talk about my emotions, got to be the tough guy, Jersey boy, just don't talk about it. That also has irrationalities as well. Over-concern, remember we talk about concern with over-concern on the channel. It's not about never being frustrated because that's irrational. It's not even about never being angry ever again. You might have some bursts of anger, but then realizing those irrational beliefs and then bringing them down. Forcing acceptance. In the beginning, I can speak for myself here and probably a lot of other people I've talked to in the journey. Most of us will try to force acceptance, and rightfully so. It is a very frustrating disorder at times to live with some chronic anxiety or chronic intrusive thoughts or images and stuff like that. So learning to accept them actually will take time and patience. And you have time and patience on your side. That's a big, big part of this that kind of is overlooked in a lot of different ways. So that forcing of acceptance, most of us have all been there. You just get back on track. One of my favorite quotes ever from the founder of BNI, which is the largest referral organization. Someone who is, good at doing stuff like this will have habits, but when something isn't working, they can redirect it and try something new without having too much, self-doubt on themselves, which we all will have naturally throughout life. Why we stay stuck. Definitely want to talk on this. Fear, looking for certainty, and reassurance. Reassurance, the reason why, like on the Facebook group, if you see me, the OCD Recovery Facebook group, if you're not a member of that, I highly recommend. There's moderators on there who look out for reassurance, and we try to instill compassion, self-compassion, empathy, and stuff like that. Like say the medication questions are really common. Now, none of us can comment on medications. So we always say you should talk to your provider, but a lot of people like looking for certainty and that reassurance. A lot of people will begin things with, I know this isn't reassurance, but that's usually reassurance, unfortunately. And it's okay, learning, getting frustrated, like, maybe I just didn't catch that this time. And, I can work on it from here. That itself took me a long time because I would say to myself, I'm dumb. I'm an idiot. I should be able to realize this now, especially, going through grad school, you just think you're on top of the world. And I just had this slew of irrational beliefs. Now, the Freudian theory of psychoanalytics or psychoanalysis. Dr. Albert Ellis actually was a psychoanalyst before he created REBT, Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy, which now, formed with Aaron Beck, is now CBT, gold standard for a lot of things. Now, the activating event that we have in our lives. Now, we all have goals. Dr. Albert Ellis realized that most people have two common goals. Not everyone, but most people. That is to stay alive and be reasonably happy. Now, happiness is a moving target. Rob, that's a great way to put it. You know, if you just always are looking for that happiness, you're going to create another type of cycle potentially and stay stuck continuously. So we now realize that the belief through the Ellis, basically philosophy on life from the Stoicism and Greek philosophers, the event doesn't make us the way we are. Thinking about it is what it does. Now, I was very biased. I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I was, because I'm a perfectionist and in where I was and had these very strong beliefs. I said, the trauma doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all. That's not true. We know objectively in brain scans that trauma does play a factor. We do know that. And it's also hard with different ages. You're with like a 12-year-old or something like that. Once you get to a certain age, there's no direct age, the beliefs you hold now are more than likely the driving reason of the C, which is the emotional consequence and stuff like that. And that's really, really a big thing. And the psychoanalytic part of just diving into the past can really become problematic for people with OCD. And it is cool to look at certain things like that, and it definitely has meaning, but I wouldn't say it's the number one driver of the reason why we're feeling the way we are, especially with OCD. A good thing, I'm reading one of Dr. Albert Ellis's anger books, because that's something I'm working on now. He said that if someone was to come to you playing tennis, I don't think I've even talked about this with Rob. If someone's come to you playing tennis and they have poor mechanics, you wouldn't spend 2 to 4 months thinking, well, why did you build that? Why you swing that way? You would think, okay, well, this is where you are now. Let's instill new things and go from there. Think about what I just said. You're not going to take someone with bad mechanics or poor beliefs and spend your whole time diving into why they are the way they are. You just move forward with new techniques. That is the simplest way to explain Freudian theory psychoanalysis versus the more REBT approach. Again, it's not that this is what the best of them knew at the time. I mean, this is was he born, like 1855 or something? And that's really, really important to talk about. Again, it's not that it doesn't have value. It's just more than likely not the driver of the emotional consequence. So, where I started, let's bring this in a little bit closer. Oh, that's a little too close there. Okay. So, the reading list. I know we talk about the reading list a lot. So we have how to stubbornly refuse to make yourself miserable. The myth of self-esteem, because self-esteem is a myth widely talked about. It's based completely on conditional behaviors. If I do X, I'll feel Y. I need to build that self-esteem instead of working with, even if I never achieve my goals, none of them. Even if nobody ever likes me, nobody. Even if everyone makes fun of me, everyone. It's uncomfortable. It's definitely frustrating, rightfully so, but it's not the horrid, catastrophizing belief that we put that on. There's actually a really good video on YouTube by Dr. Albert Ellis and a patient named Gloria in 1965 about relationships. Just a great thing to watch. So the beliefs, again, working on our core beliefs cannot be overlooked. It's really, really important. Ups and downs and cutting out compulsions. Cutting out video games was huge for me. You're not going to cut your compulsions out overnight, more than likely. Some people do. You're not going to cut out your rumination overnight, as some people will make it out to believe. Yes, you can definitely bring down a lot of the rumination pretty quickly, but that automatic rumination, which is missed quite frequently in many people in the community, will more than likely not come down until you bring the fear down. Let me say that again. Automatic rumination, because you are afraid of something, will more than likely not fully release until the fear comes down with patience and practice. The key part where you're getting started is accepting all sensations, images, feelings, everything. A lot of people will ask, well, what's the difference between accepting a sensation versus accepting an intrusive thought? There's actually no difference. You're accepting everything, the whole spectrum of OCD. Unwanted images, sensations, feelings, intrusive thoughts. The more you fight them and the more you believe that you can't stand them, yes, they may be annoying. Yes, they may be frustrating. All the healthy emotions, as Ellis talks about in his books. But they don't warrant the chronic anxiety, the chronic depression, the chronic guilt, the chronic shame. And I actually want to talk about those for two specific reasons. There are a lot of people that talk about shame and guilt that I don't personally believe have an actual full understanding of it. And this is what they do. They do this for a living. I think a lot of their work is tremendous and I love it. But once you have unconditional self-acceptance, unconditionally, the act cannot warrant shame. It can warrant, upset, sad, maybe a little bit of regret to push you forward to maybe work on yourself. But you will not be shameful and you will not have chronic guilt once you have unconditional self-acceptance, which is a missing piece that Dr. Albert Ellis realized when he was creating RET. So let's look at this real quick. Time, patience, persistence, and realizing that nobody can do this for you is gigantic. It's very easy to get caught up in, oh, this person can do this for me to get better. The reality is, nobody can make you get better except for you with practice, patience, applying the tools, ups and downs, going through different changing, thinking you're recovered, thinking you're not recovered, bad moments, great moments, peaks and troughs, as Rob said. That comes from you. It does not come from someone solving your problems. And unfortunately, there's a lot of really, really poor advice out there in the OCD community, recover in 5 days, recover in a month, and stuff like that, and can leave us really, really hopeless. So let's talk about probably the most important part of the video. A lot of you are wondering, where am I now? Where am I now? I got to back this up a little bit more. Okay, so I'm much more rational. Much more rational. I have much more patience. As you can imagine, looking at my personality, I was a very impatient person. I needed things now. It must be done right now. I need it to be done this second. I don't measure my feelings in recovery. Remember, as we talked about in certain videos with Rob, that internal thermometer, you're always waking up checking, that's not going to go down overnight. That's a skill. That takes a skill required to realize that you're doing that. And it's not the easiest thing, and it might take a little bit for you to get used to. Recovery is not never experiencing anxiety, never experiencing uncomfortable feelings again. That's what a lot of the somatic OCD people, the fear of having saliva and being stuck, which was my main fear. I've talked to people, they'll say, well, I never want to notice it again. That's what I thought. That kept me stuck. It's about, even if it's there, it's not as bad as we make it out to be because it's a normal part of the human physiology. That cannot be overlooked. I'm better at accepting myself for who I am. Not the best. I'm still working on the next, whatever X part of my journey, maybe year, 2 year, rest of my life. I'll be working more on, my beliefs with my anger, why I believe that people are the ones that trigger me. No one triggers us. Yes, it might be frustrating. It might upset us, but rage and anger, those beliefs come from us. That comes from us, not the other person. Probably the most worldwide held irrational belief in the top 5, that other people anger us. Working on my marriage, accepting my wife for who she is, her accepting me for who I am, back and forth, maybe teaching others about this throughout my journey, and dedicating a good amount of my life to helping people with OCD for the rest of my life because I'm actually really passionate about this. And empathy. I kind of circled that down there. I was really not empathetic at all. So it was taking a habit to learn how to be empathetic. And that was a huge driving factor in my recovery, showing myself empathy and giving empathy for others. It also helps create a more stable conversation, even if you don't agree with someone. I did want to end it with this. What did not work for me? Before I go any further, some of these things may work for you. Some of them might have a better place for certain fears or be better off in the journey. But I can tell you with somatic OCD, the consensus is mindfulness might not be the best thing because it drives you internally. And if you're constantly trying to live in this mindful state, that's more than likely a major compulsion that can be missed very easily. Just be focused on the moment. Just be focused in the moment. Or, it's all about being present. Being present's cool, but that's not what life is all about. So, timelines. We never want to have timelines. We know that having a timeline can lead to comparative suffering. Well, that person got better in a year. Why didn't I get better in a year? It seems at the time the right thing to do, but it will just keep you stuck in the long run. I absolutely promise you that. So creating secondary and tertiary issues. So for me, let's say my issue was my somatic OCD, my fear of my somatic OCD, not the saliva itself, the fear of the saliva. Can't miss that point. My secondary problem was my video game usage, aka my compulsion. My tertiary problem was doubting myself about my video games. Once you start to realize, like, all right, no, I got to accept right now I got a video game problem. I'm going to try and bring video games out. Luckily, I cut it cold turkey. Other things in my life I haven't been able to cut cold turkey I've been struggling with for the last year while I've been going through recovery. And that, is something else different I'll talk about in another video. But this is why showing yourself that self-compassion is really, really important. Focusing on the A. Very easy to fall into this trap. Focusing on why am I like this? Why do I have OCD? It's cool to learn about it. It might push you in the right direction, but putting all your efforts on why you got chronic OCD will just leave you stuck and not really aid in your recovery. Quick fixes, don't really need to elaborate on that. There's a lot of quick fixes out there. I can't make this any more clear. Time, patience, ups and downs, peaks and troughs, moving with uncertainty, going through tough moments, putting yourself in situations that scare you, safe situations, guided by someone that knows what they're doing, and forcing recovery. Let's leave it at that. Forcing recovery cannot be overlooked. It is extremely important to do. I'm actually going to take this off. I actually want to show you guys a couple things. So forcing recovery cannot really be overlooked, and we all try and do it. We got my dog down here. She's been sitting here the whole time. Hey, Daisy, come here, boo-boo. Say hi to everyone down here. Yeah, look at that cute face. Give me a kiss. Oh, kiss up here. Watch this. Ready? Give me a paw. Give me a paw. Oh! Give me a kiss. So Daisy's great. Daisy's been a huge staple of my recovery. I won't lie, actually. She is an emotional support animal. We'll go over here real quick and find Milo, who I had to put in the cage because he barks a lot when I'm making videos. So, hey, Milo, you can come out. Come say hi to the camera. Oh, you're so cute. And this stuff is important. I actually, there is a couple other things I do want to say. Humor is important. Laughter is great. This journey can be tough. We're not underlying the journey. Laugh, get out there, experience life, bring it with you for the ride. Excuse me. Don't let OCD recover. Don't wait for OCD recovery to come to you. Go out there and get it. I know it sounds cliche, but there's some real truth to that. Having lifestyle habits is important. That balance is going to be really, really important in life. It's not about having the strictest schedule. I used to be like, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. every single day. I wake up between 5 and 6:30. Who knows? Whatever I have going on that day. I nap when I want to nap. I just live a life based off of, even if other people told me I was lazy or whatever. Just went crazy right there. So that's the key and basically what I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the support. My wife, friends, family, moderators, Rob, anyone I've talked to in the OCD recovery group. Definitely making some great friends for life. Remember, it's not out to be as lonely as it can be. We're all here to help each other. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Have a great one. You can recover if you put the work in with time and patience.